listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
Crosstalk with Sarah Cross, a place for radio wanderers to learn about the highest laws and other related topics, with the occasional stroll through more relaxed notions. Every Wednesday, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern, or 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Crosstalk with Sarah Cross, Studio A on Revolution Radio.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with Dave and Mickey's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button and help support the station. Get yourself some merchandise. Yeah. You can get a t-shirt, a mug, or anything you like. And you can also support Mickey and I. We've got a website, shinysideout.net. Go there and you can support us as well. Look, we're open to advertising, by the way. Mickey's spirit fingers.
My phone is very large.
We're open to advertising, so...
I'm all for it, baby.
That's it. So, if you'd like, go ahead and make contact with us, and that'd be great. We're halfway through, believe it or not, Mickey's show.
You're ad here. Ooh.
705. That's the
5 and 700. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
That's the show.
Took me a little while to get there.
Dave, no, all good, brother. Look, there's a couple of things I just need to say, sort of hanging over from the last hour. Number one is we spoke about the Tucker Carlson 9/11 documentary, and it appears that has been postponed to the 23rd of September. And this is what it says here on his website, notice of rescheduled release. We join all those mourning the death of Charlie Kirk and have rescheduled the release of the 9/11 files. Thank you for understanding. Now, I thought something like that might happen. And so now we know why the 9/11 files are not actually available to view, simply because...
Respect.
Out of respect. But I also think it would have got lost in the Charlie Kirk news cycle and his assassination. I think that's also true. And I know, and I do respect Tucker Carlson not wanting to hit the American people with too much at once, or even the global community, right? And don't forget, we in Australia have a Turning Point. Is it an embassy, an affiliate here in Australia? So the Turning Point USA America organization that Charlie co-founded also has an outpost here in Australia, just to let everybody know. Now, and one other thing, and then I think we should go into the text, but it's what we consider life, what we consider everyday stuff, and it is more and more apparent to me as I get older, because there are a lot of younger people out there, influencers, etc., on the net, and it's become the source of truth for a great many people because of convenience, easily digestible pieces of information, etc., etc. And I dig it. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But what I realize is that a lot of people just don't have the knowledge anymore that is required to navigate our society effectively. and critically. And by critically, I don't mean negatively, but critically in the sense of I'm going to evaluate what people tell me, and I'm going to make up my own mind. I have the information. I have the capacity to do it because I'm smart. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about people in general, right? You're smart enough to do it. So I should. But I find that a lot of that has sort of gone away to some extent. And I think that is due to the fact that there's too much information. And we have done a great job of reducing our children's attention span significantly, right? So we no longer are breeding, as from the general population at least, actively all these deep thinkers that we need to run a proper society that is not just a capitalist machine.
But it's also occurring
pretty
across
much
generations now because the adoption of the social media. The doom scrolling.
Oh yeah,
it's happening across.
But
it's not just those who have been born into it, but
correct.
Yes, you're right. You're right, Becky. You and I, we are, the survivors of Gen X.
Yeah, correct. You're correct, and
critical thinking.
It is a phenomenon. Yeah, the thing is this, though, that we have seen something else. We grew up differently. We know another way, if you will, right? Whereas most kids in the West, in the affluent West, don't.
That's a very good point. That they know no difference.
Yeah. That's the one thing that became apparent to me when I started listening to what they were saying about 9/11, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the general state of what's happening in America, and I kind of answered my own question. I asked myself, and I asked on the air as well, how is it that so many people believe that a billionaire, a corrupt billionaire who is, for all intents and purposes, a convicted felon, but that's neither here nor there, how is it that so many Americans trust this person? How is it so many Americans think that this person is going to solve all my problems? It's because they don't know any better. They don't know any better. The Washington elite has become such a womp and such a horrible thing, right, that anyone is better than them. Except, of course, they're not, because they're just as bad, if not worse, as we have now learned, as we have now experienced globally, not just in America, but on a global scale. So, and that's because a lot of people don't remember any other way. They don't remember pre-9/11, okay? Because a lot of them might have been young, right, in their maybe early teens, potentially, right, and not even born yet. In some instances, those are people in their 30s now, Dave, or 40s even.
That's right.
And another factor here is the fact that it is not so much. I mean, culture changes, but I grew up with movies like It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and movies like that. In Europe, we had many, many more movies which were much, much stranger in many, many ways, and I grew up feeling guilty for being German, and then feeling underprivileged for being half Turkish, and then learning I've got Jewish ancestors, and you can understand how conflicted I became. But it's a fundamentally different way of growing up that we experienced, and our cultural inputs were fundamentally different. I urge everybody who has not seen it to watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and to also watch It's a Wonderful Life. But It's a Wonderful Life, when you watch it as an adult, it's a very different movie. Watch it. Understand it. Understand what Mr. Smith stood for. Understand what Charlie stood for in It's a Wonderful Life. Okay? And you realize, because the issues that are faced in those movies are exactly the same as today. Of course they're the same. Because it's the same capitalist system driven to greed and production that was relevant. Well, this is now 80 years ago, Dave. 90 years almost.
Wow.
For Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, It's a Wonderful Life. We're talking like the 40s here, right? That's a long time ago. Black and white, I know, and I know it's old school and all that, but do watch it, because it might give you a different perspective. I really believe that. It bothers me that these cultural artifacts are lost. Right? Because if I say something, even yourself, Dave, if you start talking to people, you think that they have the same cultural understanding, the same I guess the same background and the same insights that you have, right? To some extent, at least.
Foundational.
That's
yes,
no longer true.
You imagine that.
Yeah, but it's no longer true. It's absolutely not true.
No.
It is absolutely not true anymore, right?
I also,
it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing.
I also mentioned the departure from having a combined experience, watching the news, going to the movie theaters. We're now on our own individual paths through doom scrolling and our YouTube watching and what influences we have outside. There's no sharing of this. You might share a video to a friend or thereabouts, but not to your immediate family. Could you imagine sending what you send to your friends to all of your family members? That's shocking. I can feel that people realizing that this is a departure from the foundational living where we shared experiences, common experiences. We watched the news together. We were shocked by the newspapers. We had discussions at the dinner table about current affairs.
Yes.
We're not there anymore. That's long gone. So what do you believe? And I feel sorry for the people whose only avenue to learn anything is from social media.
Yep.
Because
100%.
Yeah, how do you trust it? It's just
the
opinions layered with opinions with more opinions.
100%. 100%. You can't see. This is the problem. You can't trust it to the same extent that you could in the olden days. Now bear in mind that going back 50, 60, 70, 80, 50, 60, 70, 80, even 100 years, the news was not owned as a proprietary entity by a few people as it is today.
That's right.
The news was, there were hundreds in America and certainly thousands of independent papers, radio stations, TV stations globally. Thousands, if not tens of thousands. Independent. Some state, some independent. Some for public broadcast use, etc., right? But truly, you could get a fairly good idea of what's going on. Did people still make decisions as to what goes where? Yes. But this is going to sound high-minded, maybe even a little hoity-toity.
Here it comes.
But people had ethical standards.
That's right.
Ethical standards. You would adhere to the truth as much as possible. You would report what happened. I remember the news when I was a child, and this is only the 60s and 70s, right? And it would report what happened rather than telling me how I should think about it or how I should feel about it.
That's right.
But it would tell me, well, this is what happened, and it wouldn't tell me everything. It's just too much news, of course. It's, but you can always go to other news sources, listen to the radio, read a newspaper, whatever, right? Now we have such a huge influx of information, and most of it has an emotional value attached to it, which is meant to make you feel a certain way, right? Imagine a world where the information came to you and you would be required to keep your own mind. You don't know how to feel about it, so you get more information, and then you look into the background of it, and you start thinking about it, God forbid, right? And you have time to think because there are no other distractions, hopefully, for you. Newton and Einstein, do you know why they did what they did or how they could do it? Because they locked themselves away for months at a time to work on a problem, to work on something, whatever, right? They locked themselves away. And I'm just picking those two because everybody knows them. But anybody who has achieved anything, of meaningful impact in their life has had to do this through hard yakka. Hard yakka means hard work, Australian slang. You can't just expect to just have something. Right now, we're living in a world now, and this will be the last thing I say about it, and then I'll give it to you, Dave, and we can start on the text if you like. But we're living in a world where everything is given to us on a silver platter, or the expectation is it should be, right? This TikTok and just-in-time economy, throwaway economy, and the speed with which we consume and discard trends and fashions and so forth, even people and friendships, has come with such speed and is moving with such speed that it is almost impossible to stop and think, because we're constantly bombarded with completely irrelevant things, to be honest. So, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say about this, and we can. Do you want to hang on to something? And
I do.
Text,
so we don't choose relevancy anymore. We're exposed to it. We don't choose it. You can imagine that at a time, and we've spoke about this a long time ago, but I thought it was Mockingbird, but I'm not sure which project it was. It was a project where all of the news outlets had an embedded government employee, unbeknownst to their corporation, who would be in a position to be able to filter out stories that the government did not want to run. And this was invisible. We didn't know it existed until decades after the system was dismantled to a certain point, because it had been taken over or accelerated ahead of by social media, and that social media now does the same thing. What does it expose us to? What does it withhold from our knowledge? And we see this all the time. This is not anything new. I'm not telling you something that you don't already know, just maybe you never put it together like that before. So because we live in this, I'm going to say, darn strange time now, which is still changing faster than we can possibly even comprehend, although it seems static to us, but it isn't. It's a slow moving leviathan of control, which is only going in one direction. And I can't tell you the day before Facebook was released, I couldn't tell you that Facebook was going to be the thing that changed the world. I couldn't tell you that. And now we've seen a cumulative effect of TikTok and Instagram, Snapchat. All of these things now have taken us so far away from where we used to be. I do remember catching a train and reading the newspaper, and then putting the newspaper at the end of the train trip into the newspaper recycling bin, so it could be recycled. So it was a one-use product. That's all it was, and it was free. Do you remember that, the free one?
I do.
It was fantastic.
Yes, sir.
So you get the newspaper, you read it all the way across your journey, and then you put it into the bin, and that would go straight to the paper recyclers. And the whole thing was paid for by advertising. It was beautiful.
Yep. Oh, fantastic.
What a great way of being able to fund the last bastion of newspapers, when we only had these little tiny Nokia screens, an inch by an inch. That was all. Do you remember? That's all it was. The screen, because they tried to reduce the thing down to just being a keypad and a screen, and it was called a candlestick model. And it was
meant to be the size of a thumbnail. Yeah, that's right.
that's right.
It was the age of the tiny phone. It's like,
so
where's your phone? I don't know. I think I swallowed
it. So there was a phone about this big, right? And we used to laugh because you have to go, yeah, because it couldn't hear you. It was so small, because I think Will Ferrell did a gag on it where it was about as big as this, and you'd have to put it to your ear, then you had to talk to it and put it back. Hilarious. Just like the old phone on the wall where you had to put it to your ear and wind it up. Yeah. Crazy.
Yes. Ashcode 539. Oh, I think you did some practice with your telephone machine.
Ahoy, hoy.
Ahoy, hoy.
Yes. So, look, I probably want to end it there, but I think it's an extraordinary thing, and if we have any conversation between these generations of people and their understanding, I know that I have a lot more patience for the younger generation than they do of us, because we're wrong and we don't know. And despite the amount of effort that I put in to attempting to understand what it's like, having a greater understanding than they believed that I'd have, there still is there's an air gap, Meki, between the two. It is something that's quite extraordinary, which I never thought with the intellect, Meki, that you and I have as parents would ever conceive of during our growing up, that this would ever be the case.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm not talking just a natural resistance of a teenager to disbelieve what you say. I'm not saying that. This is completely different.
Yes.
It's a generation that's been born in isolation.
Yes, in many ways. It's and now generations. I think it's anyway. We'll see. All we can do is try to teach our children as best as we can.
That's right.
But let's get into the text, my friend, because this is some interesting stuff here.
This is show 705, so I'll start by talking about aging. And this is to do with telomeres, Meki. That's where we're up to. So, aging, well, telomerase, if you don't know what that is, quickly look it up. The telomerase repression prevents cancer, part of your debate on the last show. It also leads to telomere shortening. So, if you stop the production of telomerase, your telomeres begin to shorten with every replication, which eventually triggers cellular senescence, which is a state of permanent cell cycle arrest and contributes to aging. So that's, then in a nutshell, what aging is. So, Meki, the Hayflick limit.
Okay. The Hayflick limit is the number of times a cell can divide before telomeres become too short and cellular senescence is triggered. So it's essentially cell death. The Hayflick limit determines cell death. Telomerase in cancer. Cancer cells often reactivate, and it's not often, always reactivate telomerase, allowing them to bypass the Hayflick limit and divide indefinitely. Again, goes back to my point. In a healthy cell, if a healthy cell is healthy and reproduces healthily, which is what telomerase enables, then why on earth is it switched off? It always comes back to the point, telomerase repression prevents cancer. Telomerase repression prevents cancer. How? Why? Explain to me the chemical or biological logic behind it. Please, don't just say that, because I can't find it anywhere, Dave. I can't find the details anywhere, and I looked. Anyway.
It's no different. My frustration is equal, but it's, instead of telomerase, it's dark matter. People still hold on to this theory that there is a theory. They haven't found any yet, but still, hey, it's real. It's got to be real. It just has to be real, Becky.
I'd like to talk about the dark matter in the room.
I think the elephant's sitting on it.
Sorry, telomerase and aging. Telomere shortening is a factor in age-related diseases and tissue degeneration. We know this. You know this. You know this now. Telomerase is a therapeutic target. Telomerase is a target for cancer treatment, and some researchers are exploring ways to use it to treat age-related diseases by manipulating telomere length. Now, it makes sense to switch telomerase off in cancer cells. Yes. Doesn't make sense to switch telomerase off in healthy and healthily dividing cells. Now, we've got two articles which we will get to today. One is from 2024, the other one is from 2025, which represent the latest I could find on telomere and telomerase research. Why don't you take us through the first one, Dave?
Okay, so this is the latest news on telomere and telomerase research. Unlocking longevity, the role of telomeres and its targeting inventions. Targeting, yeah, that's right. That's what it says. I'm not going to bother reading them. I'll just put it on screen so people can see it for themselves. There you go. That's what it is. So, eventually these show notes will be on our website. The abstract from this article is average life expectancy has been steadily increasing in developed countries worldwide. These demographic changes are associated with an ever-growing social and economic strain to healthcare systems as well as society. The aging process typically manifests as a decline in physiological and cognitive functions, accompanied by a rise in chronic diseases. Consequently, strategies that both mitigate age-related diseases and promote healthy aging are urgently needed. Telomere attrition, characterized by the shortening of telomeres with each cell division, paradoxically serves as both a protective mechanism and a contributor to tissue degeneration and age-related ailments. Based on the essential role of telomere biology in aging, research efforts aim to develop approaches designed to counteract telomere attrition, aiming to delay or reduce age-related diseases. In this review, telomere biology and its role in aging and age-related diseases is summarized along with recent approaches to interfere with telomere shortening, aiming at well and healthy aging as well as longevity. Aging research enters a new era. This review emphasizes telomere targeting therapeutics, including telomerase activators and, what's that word? Tankerase inhibitors, while also exploring the effects of antioxidative and anti-inflammatory agents, along with indirectly related approaches like statins. Not Satans, not today's Satan.
Get behind me, Satan! I'm sorry.
That's all right. You can take.
Go ahead.
You can take the next.
Okay. Okay. No worries. Conclusions and future directions. Now, the whole article you can find, of course, on the relative website. It is https://pmc.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov /articles/pmc. Okay, perfect. It'll be there. Now, over the past decades, medicine has already undergone a notable transformation, shifting from a sick care approach, which centered mainly on the treatment of diseases after manifestation, to a healthcare paradigm that proactively identifies and mitigates specific risk factors to prevent the manifestation of diseases. Now, that's largely true and was driven by cost reduction, of course, because it's cheaper for the government to deal with the onset of a disease than a full-blown, whatever it might be, cancer, whatever. Nevertheless, considering the demographic shift towards a progressively aging population worldwide, an even more health-focused approach must be pursued to not only prevent the collapse of the healthcare system, but also other socioeconomic structures. Now, just on that, I read today that in Japan, for the first time, 100,000 people are over the age of 100.
Wow.
That comes on the heel. Yeah, I know. That comes on the heel of the news that I think about 2 or 3 months ago, Japan sold more adult diapers than baby diapers in history ever.
Oh, that's so cute.
So that's really interesting, isn't it? Yes,
well,
yes.
Also,
now,
with
again,
Putin and Xi, we're talking about possibility of living indefinitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Dave and I have in fact, this is what this is really, and we've talked about this quite some time, and it is one of the foundational underlying thoughts, if you will, of the hypothesis is extreme longevity or even immortality. Now, as I said, we need to do this in order to prevent the collapse of the healthcare system, as I said, right? A deep understanding of the mechanisms and pathological processes involved in aging is crucial, not only for refining therapies for age-related diseases, but also for positively influencing the aging process, thereby extending the prospect of a longer active lifespan. Again, it is no good to live a long life if you're sick and frail. What's the point, right? So what you want to do is you want to arrest the aging process, reverse it if you can, right? And therefore have a much more enjoyable and productive life in your later years. That's really the kicker here. That's what you want, right? You don't want to be old and decrepit. That makes absolutely no sense. In this context, the telomere complex seems to have a pivotal role. Consequently, unraveling the complexities of telomere biology could unlock potential strategies for tackling age-associated diseases and modulating the aging process itself. Modulating the aging process itself. Although the described therapeutic approaches and interventions targeting telomere dynamics show some promise, further high-quality human studies and detailed investigations are needed to substantiate any recommendations. Of course, that makes perfect sense. Now, that was 2024. The next article that Dave is going to share here is from July 2025. So a fairly recent article, yeah? So go ahead, my friend.
Absolutely. I'm just sharing the title screen so they can see that. And we'll be sharing the link. It'll be below in the long form video. Scientists discover key regulators of telomerase, the enzyme at the heart of aging and cancer. Research. It's not in the heading font. A groundbreaking study by Children's Medical Research Institute, the CMRI, researchers reveal a new group of proteins that guide the powerful enzyme telomerase, opening potential doors to novel treatments for cancer, aging, and genetic diseases. Telomerase, a crucial enzyme that keeps our chromosomes intact during cell division, has long fascinated scientists for its dual role in both promoting healthy aging and enabling the uncontrolled growth of cancer cells. Researchers at CMRI have now identified a new set of proteins that play a vital role in controlling this enzyme. In a recent study published in Nature Communications, researchers have discovered that a group of proteins known as the DBHS protein family, including NONO or NONO, SFPQ, and PSPC1, are essential for transporting telomerase to where it's needed most, the protective ends of chromosomes called telomeres. There's a quote here, and it is from Dr. Alexander Sobanoff, the study's lead author. Our findings show that these proteins act like molecular traffic controllers, making sure telomerase reaches the right destination inside the cell. Without these proteins, telomerase can't properly maintain telomeres, a finding which has significant implications for healthy aging and cancer progression. There's some key discoveries here, and so there's 3 points. The first one is the DBHS proteins interact directly with telomerase, helping it leave specific compartments in the nucleus and travel to the chromosome ends. Number 2, each of the 3 proteins play a unique, non-redundant role in telomere maintenance. And number 3, prolonged disruption of these proteins in cancer cells prevents telomerase from maintaining telomeres, leading to a dramatic shortening of chromosome ends, providing a strategy for preventing the relentless growth of cancers. Telomerase is often hyperactive in cancer cells, allowing them to multiply endlessly. On the flip side, insufficient telomerase activity is linked to rare genetic disorders, premature aging, and organ failure. Understanding how telomerase is controlled could have profound implications for treating a wide range of diseases. Mekhi.
Okay, so the rest we've already talked to you about. We don't want to go and we don't need to talk about telomerase again. The next article is called "The Hidden Secret of Immortality," the enzyme telomerase, and subtitled, Can We Stay Young Forever or Even Recapture Lost Youth? This is from February 27, 2018. So some, 7 years ago, thereabouts, 7.5 years. And this is was published by the Arizona State University. So this is the first time we had telomerase article in the show notes, and it is still relevant, so I'm going to share it with you. After which we actually have a study, which is really interesting, which Dave is going to share with you if we have the time. Can we stay young forever or even recapture lost youth? Research from the laboratory of Professor Julian Chen in the School of Molecular Sciences at Arizona State University recently uncovered a crucial step in the telomerase enzyme catalytic cycle. Again, 7 years ago. This catalytic cycle determines the ability of the human telomerase enzyme to synthesize DNA repeats, which are specific DNA segments of 6 nucleotides, onto chromosome ends, and so afford immortality in cells. So essentially what it does, it adds additional segments to your DNA when they, get destroyed or lost in the copying process. So that's what telomerase does, right? Understanding the underlying mechanism of telomerase action offers new avenues toward effective anti-aging therapeutics. And again, 7 years ago, I think we've come a long way since then. And I do believe at this point, I'm away from the text right now, I do believe at this point that there are therapies available for the, I would imagine, ultra wealthy potentially, because they want to live longer first, and they might even want to keep it as close to the chest for as long as possible, but not forever. I don't think it's possible because this genie is out of the bottle and we know it exists. And for the last few years now, the research has been fairly intense. I do believe there are treatments available today, though, that maybe not for you and me, but certainly for some of the parasitic elitists. Typical human cells are mortal and cannot forever renew themselves, as demonstrated by Leonard Hayflick a half-century ago. That's the Hayflick limit guy. Human cells have a limited replicative lifespan, with older cells reaching this limit sooner than younger cells. Thank you, Captain Obvious. This Hayflick limit of cellular lifespan is directly related to the number of unique DNA repeats found at the ends of the genetic material bearing chromosomes. These DNA repeats are part of the protective capping structures termed telomeres, which safeguard the ends of chromosomes from unwanted and unwarranted DNA rearrangements that destabilize the genome. Each time the cell divides, the telomeric DNA shrinks and will eventually fail to secure the chromosome ends. This continuous reduction of telomere length functions as a molecular clock that counts down to the end of cell growth. The diminished ability for cells to grow is strongly associated with the aging process, with the reduced cell population directly contributing to weakness, illness, and organ failure. That, my dear friends, is the kill switch. Okay, in case you're wondering, that right there, in them thar hills, we found the kill switch. Counteracting the telomere shrinking process is the enzyme telomerase that uniquely holds the key to delaying or even reversing the cellular aging process. Reversing. Telomerase offsets cellular aging by lengthening the telomeres, adding back lost DNA repeats to add time onto the molecular clock countdown, effectively extending the lifespan of the cell. Telomerase lengthens telomeres by repeatedly synthesizing very short DNA repeats of 6 nucleotides, the building blocks of DNA, with the sequence GGTTAG onto the chromosome ends from an RNA template located within the enzyme itself. However, the activity of the telomerase enzyme is insufficient to completely restore the lost telomeric DNA repeats, nor to stop cellular pulmonary fibrosis. There have been genetic linked to mutations that negatively affect telomerase activity and or accelerate the loss of telomere length. So there are, genetic factors that could interfere with this process. This accelerated telomere shortening closely resembles premature aging with increased organ deterioration and a shortened patient lifespan from critically insufficient cell populations. Increasing telomerase activity is the seemingly most promising means of treating these diseases. So there are diseases And we've seen them. I mean, like the little kids that look like 80-year-olds, right? I mean, we are familiar. I think it's one of the most tragic conditions there is. While increased telomerase activity could bring youth to aging cells and cure premature aging-like diseases, too much of a good thing can be damaging for the individual. Just as youthful stem cells use telomerase to offset telomere length loss, cancer cells employ telomerase to maintain their aberrant and destructive growth. Yes, augmenting and regulating telomerase function will have to be performed with precision, walking a narrow line between cell rejuvenation and a heightened risk for cancer development. Okay, here I'm gonna have to just interject just for a second. Cancers develop after the telomerase has been switched off. Okay, it may develop with telomerase still active. Okay, like if you get cancer when you're young, and chances are telomerase is still active, and then the cancer cell will use telomerase to, protect itself from aging and so forth, senescence, etc. But if it's switched off, if you've reached a certain age, you get your cancer in your late 20s or your 30s, let's say, then this aberrant cell, which came about maybe through, failed copying process, some mutations in the DNA, maybe some toxins or radiation you were exposed to, it doesn't really matter. That cell will again switch on telomerase to protect itself, like I said, right? So just to be clear, that we don't get confused, telomerase does not cause cancer, because that's the subtext I'm getting here, right? Telomerase does not cause cancer. Let's be very clear on that. Anyway, distinct from human stem cells, somatic cells constitute the vast majority of the cells in the human body and lack telomerase activity. The telomerase deficiency of human somatic cells reduces the risk of cancer development, as telomerase fuels uncontrolled cancer cell growth. Yeah, once the cancer develops. Therefore, drugs that increase telomerase activity indiscriminately in all cell types are not desired. Toward the goal of precisely augmenting telomerase activity selectively within adult stem cells, this discovery reveals the crucial step in telomerase catalytic cycle as an important new drug target. Small molecule drugs can be screened or designed to increase telomerase activity exclusively within stem cells for disease treatment, as well as anti-aging therapies without increasing the risk of cancer. Now, I agree that telomerase should be switched off in cancer cells. Makes perfect sense to me, right? So therefore, we have to find a mechanism that allows us to keep telomerase switched on for as long as possible, but turned off in cancer cells or cells that show pre-cancer, activities or signs, whatever they might be. So if we can achieve that, then we would have effective, to find upon it, immortality. If we can achieve targeted telomerase therapy, right, precluding any cancerous cells from telomerase activation, that's the holy grail. Just to be clear. I think, Dave, we have time definitely for the June 2021 article. Actually, it's a study.
Potential of naturally derived compounds in telomerase and telomere modulation in skin senescence and aging. This was by Barbara Jazak. I'm not going to pronounce the rest of them, they're impossible for my simple brain. Department of Clinical Chemistry and Molecular Diagnostics, Poznan University of Medical Sciences. That's all I'm saying. It's from Poland. February 27th, 2021. That's pretty much when this was around about that time. Abstract. Proper functioning of cells. Their ability to divide, differentiate, and regenerate is dictated by genomic stability. The main factors contributing to this stability are the telomeric ends that cap chromosomes. Telomere biology and telomerase activity have been of interest to scientists in various medical science fields for years, including the study of both cancer and of senescence and aging. All these processes are accompanied by telomere length modulation, i.e. maintaining the key levels of telomerase component, little h TERT, expression and telomerase activity that provide optimal telomere length, as well as some non-telomeric functions, represents a promising step in advanced anti-aging strategies, especially in dermocosmetics. Some known naturally derived compounds contribute significantly to telomere and telomerase metabolism. However, before they can be safely used, it is necessary to assess their mechanisms of action and potential side effects. This paper focuses on the metabolic potential of natural compounds to modulate telomerase and telomere biology and thus prevent senescence and skin aging.
Fascinating. See, that's a direct application already, where they're trying to, obviously, the outward appearance of aging is of course, wrinkles and such. It makes perfect sense, I guess. From a money point of view, if you wanted to make money out of this is where you start from an appearance point of view. But in my mind, that kind of sells short the potential for this technology. Now think about this, Dave. And I don't think we've got enough time to go into the next article.
One. That's okay.
Well, we might. No. Actually, no. Let's just discuss between you and me.
Yeah, sure.
Think about where we are today. So officially accepted science. I'm not talking about the science that I think we should have, which is like, I think 1,000 years ahead of us or whatever, and free energy and all that. But just think about what we know. So what we know is CRISPR. We know CRISPR, which is a bacteriological immune cell factory, if you will, right? It's a fantastic tool to edit genes. That's really what it is, right? But it's coming from a bacterium, CRISPR, and we've already been using it now for 10, 15 years. Think about that in conjunction with the discovery that telomeres do what they do and telomerase does what it does in protection of the cells, preventing senescence, avoiding the Hayflick limit, essentially becoming a biologically immortal body. That's what we would be if it all worked perfectly. We would no longer age, and this is really what you want if you are looking at immortality or living for even 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years. You don't want to live in an iron lung. You don't want to be a head in a jar, right? It's not really enjoyable, I don't think. And if you could be in your body for as long as possible without even any cybernetic augmentations, such as I don't know, like mechanical arms or whatever have you, or cameras connected to your optical nerve. If you can keep your body young and strong, and this is really the kicker here, because with CRISPR, so telomeres and telomerase allow you to stay young and healthy. Okay, so tick on that. What CRISPR allows you to do is to improve your body, your genetic makeup. It allows you to improve it, not just young and healthy. That's nice, but having the bodies of a Greek god. Now, and this is really interesting, Dave. If you look at the Anunnaki, if you look at the depictions of the Anunnaki coming to us from the Sumerians and Babylonians, but not just the Anunnaki, but other cultures as well, but specifically the Anunnaki, because we've got a lot of their material from Sumer and Babylon. They're all well-built, healthy-looking specimens, which are very, very tall. So tall, in fact, that a normal human being appears as a 10-year-old child next to them, right? And we know that is true. They're not children, because in the same depiction, which is usually a relief in a stone, some kind of carving, etc. They're holding lions like cats, and we know they're lions because they got manes and claws. And relative to the humans, which appear as children, they are the right size for a lion, that is. But the Anunnaki, like I said, or the gods, hold them as though they were cats, like like domestic cats, as it were. And other animals appear just as small compared to them. And this is not an isolated incident. It is all over the artwork that we look at. It's all over it. It's everywhere. So is it too far-fetched to assume, considering we clearly share our genetic material with them, that they, in fact, have found a way to do all the things we have just discussed? CRISPR, telomeres, telomerase, etc. Maybe even something more elegant, right? Makes sense, right? Because if you come from a technologically advanced society, right, and this is one of the arguments we're making, the hypothesis. One of the key things that people want, rich people obviously, specifically, but anyone really, is to live as long as possible. You want to live as long as possible, as healthily as possible. That's what people want, right? That's what they want. Not everybody can achieve it, but if you had that technology at your fingertips, right, together with other technologies, potentially, whatever that might be, maybe, nanites that, clean your blood, who knows? If you had all of that, and you could give yourself a strong, tall, big body that doesn't tire, that doesn't age, of course you would do it. And of course you would direct your resources at that research, right? And a lot of money is being poured into this research right now, I guarantee it. And the other research area that is currently undergoing a renaissance, like people are pouring a lot of money in it, including Mr. Bigelow. Consciousness. Because quantum physics tells us that fundamentally we create reality as we go along. I know it sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what quantum physics tells us. Now, there are two schools of thought in quantum physics. One is, again, quantum physics, the double-slit experiments, many worlds theory, etc. And a new one, which is, let's call it determinism. Now, what's determinism? Determinism essentially says everything is already as it is, and everything that will happen is already set in stone. You have no free will, right? The double-slit experiment is an illusion. None of this is real in any sense. And determinism has already, set everything as it is. So if you've got spooky action at a distance, it's completely irrelevant because it's a deterministic effect of reality. No further explanation required. That's actually really a school of thought that is being entertained at the moment, which I find interesting. Right, doing away altogether with free will, which doesn't sit well with us. Plus, I honestly think that the many worlds theory is a much better explanation as to what's happening. You can agree or disagree with Everett. It's up to you. But
so Einstein had the theory that all time was in a box. Like, let's just pretend it physically in a box, just filled with strings between all of the points at which people live their lives, and that that's determinism. It doesn't matter how you get to your end place, you'll have always got there via the path you went through. And so I thought that was an extraordinary view from Einstein.
I know, but I mean, how many other options are there? I mean, it's interesting because Nietzsche, who had specifically, no, sorry, not Nietzsche, Kafka. What was it, Nietzsche? Kafka. Kafka believed that we live the same life over and over again without any alteration. So there's this, like, you're just living the same life again. And he had a horrible life. He had, I think, but you can't change anything. So in Groundhog Day, he could change things. You can't. You're locked into whatever your actions are. That's it. You can't do anything else, and you're not aware of it. So I guess it doesn't matter. But he had a horrible life. He had tuberculosis. He died fairly young, etc., etc. So it's interesting that he would adopt that kind of mindset. But enough about philosophy. Just imagine, though, you're part of a society, and this is interesting because this is sort of like the engineers in the Alien and Predator cycle, right? The movies and so forth, where the engineers seem to have that ability as well. They've conquered biology, it would seem. Because this is really there are two things that determine the relative station of a civilization: the very, very, very big and the very, very, very small. Right. So if you can master the very, and what I mean by the very, very big is like a Dyson sphere, for example, or being able to harness the energy of an entire galaxy, things like that, right? And that's the very, very big. And the very, very small, of course, is being able to manipulate things on a quantum level, right? And diving into the quantum form directly and shaping reality, as it were. And funnily enough, in my mind, one grows out of the other. If you can manipulate the very, 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 very small, manipulating the very, very, very large should become exponentially easier.
Guess what? There's the music. That's another Shiny Side Out with David Mackey. Finished for this week. Catch us Tuesday and Thursday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern US time for Plato's Cave. If you see our stuff in the wild, do like, share, subscribe, and comment. More share. Share if you can. And, well, in this day and age, Mackey, there's nothing more important than to say...
Be safe!